Welcome to Carrying Stones and Digging Holes to Cultivate Consciousness, where, for the next 2 hours, Bridgette Lynn Dolgoff and Kelsey Sweet will be sharing their knowledge and understanding with their own beautifully unique twists on all topics related to helping humanity to achieve betterment of health in body and in mind. Settle yourselves down on this fine Saturday evening. For now, it is time for Bridgette and Kelsey.
I think I'm here.
Okay, this is good news. We are on the studio. We're on the studio player, so finally kicked on. So we're all good. All right, so anyway, let me see here. All right, so let's talk about what we usually talk about. Let's ask. So how was your week?
Pretty good, I guess. I don't know. It's been the consensus across the board seems to be just an intense week, emotionally intense week. Weird things popping up. I got blood results back, so it was like looking at a weird objective mirror. Everything's all good, I guess. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's been a good week. I don't know if it was as productive as I wanted it to be, but like last week was just all about talking and communication, and this week just everything is just like, I don't know, all of a sudden it's the end of the week already. And then just like some basic mom stuff, like doctor appointments and kiddo things, and I don't know, a little bit of art, slowly plucking away at it. I always wish I had more time for art and creative stuff, just in general, but that's been my week. How about your week?
I don't know. I've just been thinking about a lot of different stuff, and every time I'm trying to escape or it's like there's just something else that, like major pops up, like I have to get a transmission for this car that I just recently bought. And, it's all good. I mean, I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. And so just looking forward to, getting on the road a little bit, I think, for the summer. I'm hoping I'll either finally get some land this summer, or that I can go find, a farm or off-the-grid place where I can help people and help educate and help build up, a food production for them. And so either way, but this year I need to go farm, no matter how I slice and dice it. So I was thinking about that today. And then this week I've been thinking about, I have a lot of clients right now that, have some of them are battling for their life right now, and just, the different things that have happened to them. And I have, I won't mention names, but I have one client that used to be my client. Last time I saw her was 2012, and we were laughing because she said that I've been working on her, and when she brought her daughter to see me too when she was a lot younger, but I've been working on her since 1994 total. But she got in a really bad accident where a huge truck hit her in her car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so she has, considered pretty, good brain injury. She still can drive and things like that, but, sometimes she forgets what certain words are. I was working on her today, and I had a sore area, and so it's funny because sometimes brain injuries remind me a little bit of Tourette's, and it's pretty funny to hear what comes out of people's mouths, but, instead of like what a normal person, would shout out if it was a sore spot. She goes, socks, because that's where her brain's at, right?
Right.
That's just a word that her brain is deciding to toss out. And
Brain
but anyway, and I think today was the first time she's ever really had some cognitive function since this accident several years ago. And so, I mean, she cried a little bit, and it just, the thing she said was that, like, I'm not asking, like, she's in her 60s, and she's like, I'm not asking to be 60 or 50 or 30 or any of this other stuff. She said, I just want my brain back, or, and, but so hopefully we'll be able to get her there. So, yeah, so that's always kind of a interesting thing. And then I have another client who, and this is the other thing too, is that, my client that I worked on today, everything alternatively and medically failed her in trying to get her brain, back going and getting a lot of that trauma straightened out in her skull and in, the base of her neck, and just some other areas. So, yeah, and I've got another client who, medicine just totally turned into like kind of a chopping block sort of. And been working with her, and she's awesome. She has like a great spirit, but I just have a lot of clients right now that are in pain and trying to help them, navigate that. And then also, that emotional work that comes along with it as well. And people having to go places, almost like they're being kind of bent over backwards in whatever struggle they're at in their health, because there's like this big change that needs to happen. And I've been through it, like I've had brain cancer and I've cured my own brain cancer. And I think what it did to my physical body was much worse than getting rid of the tumor. But because structurally it kind of, maimed me a little bit. It's taken me a long time to actually work back. But, hitting that emotional stuff, that deep emotional stuff, that the reason why everything's kind of locked up the way that it is in your health, or you're, not moving forward with health or injury. Anyway, a lot of them are kind of at that emotional jump off point, and so we'll see if they'll make the jump or they won't, and then they'll give up for a while, and maybe hopefully they'll get back into the game.
The healing process takes a while, especially when it comes to head trauma. You got to rewire everything, and like say all the emotional stuff that hides in there. That can sometimes be the trickiest part.
Yeah, no, yeah. Well, and the other thing too is like, usually I'm trying to get my, a lot of people don't really know how to treat and get the basically the twist out of the spinal cord that's going up into the brain, and being able to release those tissues and stuff in there to kind of get all that going so that the pumps can get back going, and also pressurize the brain and help, bring down the inflammation in the brain as well. Plus, it's all the information, like your spinal column is, the cover on all the wiring and all the wiring going through the house, and that's basically your spine goes to all the different places for your body. But that's the hard part, is getting that kind of open and squared away so that they actually have like pressure in their brain. And it's interesting, the shapes of when people have, head injuries, like the weird shapes that their skulls turn into. Like, for example, the person I'm working on right now, their occiput is totally like pushed out like the wrong way. And that's putting like a heavy pressure on the, because her, both sides of her head were hit and mashed together. And so the occiput is the one part of the bone of the head that actually took kind of the beating. And it's right over where the spinal cord is and C1, and has a lot to do with what's going on in C1. So, which is a very top vertebrae that's kind of, right there, right below our skull. And that has a lot to do with everything, sinuses, like every nerve, how well your body heals, how good a connection there is right there with the brain. But yeah, it's a lot. And it's a lot of re-education. I realized the other day, I don't think it was talking to you. I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about nutrition. And, it's finally like dawning on me that nobody in your life really has ever talked to you about nutrition. Like, definitely not in your education program. I mean, they gave you the food pyramid, which is like, you take a look at the food pyramid these days and you're just like horrified, like, what is actually on that food pyramid. But a lot of people didn't get any in their school, and then they were fed terrible food in school. And then, parents that worked a lot, and so maybe even not any home cooking. Some of us got some home cooking. But, your religion didn't teach you about nutrition. Your doctors really don't teach you about nutrition. So nowhere you would have learned anything really about nutrition. And that's the hardest one to work with people on, because it's just not really something that's compatible to people's, program systems. And that seems to be the one that is the hardest part, to get through. And it's an interesting thing. And, having studied, a lot of Rudolph Steiner, mostly in agriculture and anthroposophy medicine, plant medicines, and, all that. But, that was his big thing too. And it's interesting that our society doesn't really know anything about nutrition or, those kinds of topics. And if you do, it's a rarity. If you grew up, with the hippie parents or whatever, they were probably ahead of the curve. So, yeah, I'm just, I've been thinking about clients a lot this week and helping them, and maybe it's client week. The show is for the clients. No.
There we go. They're going through some tough stuff. Can vouch for mine as well. Just some big changes. Big changes in life. It's neat to witness. It's neat to watch and be a part of that process. And it's just amazing. Yeah, I got to take like one nutrition course in college. We scratched the surface, and I think I took it as an elective, so I didn't require it. There's like one of a couple of options, and it's just always odd to me, I guess. They don't require. I don't know if they've changed it now, but they don't require med students to take nutrition classes. At least not at UNR.
They never have. Medical students and doctors, they don't take any nutritional classes. In like 12 years of education, they get like a ditto sheet with 4 pages and are told basically, it won't help. It won't help your patient, so don't worry about it.
This is so underrated. It's just bizarre. Well, it is, but it isn't. It doesn't surprise me that it's not taught as far as like the politics that go. They assume that it's just the food pyramid, but even the food pyramid has changed a bit. At least it has since from when I was in school. I can't think of what it looks like.
What's it look like now? I mean, we had like bread. Bread was like,
It's
probably back then, like, before bread's probably a big thing.
I think they're like vertical next to each other and kind of sandwiched together. So like they just reoriented it a bit. I'm not sure if they've changed the proportions. I could look it up, but they've just changed it a little bit. Yeah, things aren't divided horizontally, they're divided vertically.
Okay, well, let's see what we've got here. The current food pyramid. Let's do the current elementary school. Let's see what that one looks like. Why that food pyramid we were taught in elementary school. This is kind of an interesting article. All right. Yeah, so let me see what this is. This looks like a guy who wrote kind of an article on it too. So, mypyramid.gov is what they call it, I guess now. It says why that food pyramid you were taught in elementary school may have been wrong. That's what the article is based on. Oh, man. It's funny because back when, this kind of a thing started, right, with the food pyramid, a lot of people were farmers and they grew food in their yards, I mean, nowadays, most people, you talk to them, they don't even know, how a carrot is grown. Like, they think it comes out of a closet at the grocery store. Let's see. mypyramid.gov. Okay, let's see what they have. Oh, it looks like, maybe I misspelled it. Okay, let me see if I can get it. Oh, they've taken it down. I guess some people may have complained that they didn't like the government's food pyramid. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look at it. And let's see. Oh, man, I can't. Let me see if I can see it. Oh. Okay, so why is it on? Oh, somebody took a screenshot of it. Let's take a look. Okay. Anatomy of my pyramid, but that's not it. That's, U.S. government bookstore. What the hell? So the U.S. government's bookstore. Oh, and you can buy it. Anatomy of my pyramid, which is the current Department of Agriculture's new food pyramid. And looks like a poster that you can buy. A tear sheet. Oh, I guess so that you can get them and you can give them out to your clients or students or something. Who knows? Let me look. But I can't really tell what's on it. And they're doing a 50% off sale. U.S. government bookstore.
You gotta buy it to find out. What do you want to eat?
It's only, I think, it's only like $1. Anyway. All right, so it's 50% off. So it's interesting that maybe they got rid of their website. So I'm just trying to look it up. I just wanted to see what was on it, just so that I could, let's see. Let me just put this in here. Maybe I spelled something wrong. No. Okay. All right, well, I'm not sure. Let me just do one more attempt and see if I can actually get it. Gosh, I'd like to look at what, mine was. Oldie, but a goodie. Let me see if I can get in there. Yeah, it's interesting because you can see small pictures of it, but you can't really see big pictures of it. Yeah, you're right. They call it the 5 divisions of the pyramid. Okay, so we have grains, which it looks like on here should make up, I don't know, 30% of your diet. Vegetables are a little under 30%. Let's give them like 27%. Fruits, not very big. Fruits look like maybe it's a 15%er. And then it has a yellow one, a little yellow stripe in there. But it doesn't list it here. It doesn't list what that little yellow stripe is. Very interesting. So
that's your wiggle.
Yeah, I'm gonna. And then the milk is quite a bit too. I'd say it's a little under 30%, but close up. And then meat and beans. So, and that's a little percent. So kind of interesting. Doesn't look like they have anything. I know the grains seem kind of weird too. They have, they have a picture of wheat thins or live cereal. I can't tell. It's one of those two things. And then it's interesting. There's a couple bowls, and you can't tell actually what's in them. But I don't see any like rice or quinoa or anything like that. And then the meat, I see a couple beans bouncing in the back, but for the most part, it all looks like meat product. Oh, there's like a boiled half-cut egg. Oh, and there's peanut butter on that list too, which is, peanut butter. People argue, does peanut butter, is it a nightshade or it's not a nightshade? Well, the thing is, like, if you grow it, it's probably going to be, you start to realize that it is probably a little on the nightshady side. But, peanut butter is not that good for you because it causes also a lot of food allergies. I mean, they could actually put different nuts there. But it's interesting, for sure. The dairy products are a little weird. It looks like they put like one real picture of a vegetable, then they put like kind of a cartoon one, and then they put like kind of a an empty shape, to kind of bulk it up. It's kind of weird. It's pretty bizarre because, if you're looking at like people that have mind control, you've got stuff in here that definitely the right hemisphere works with a lot. Which is probably not a good thing. But I want to know what this yellow strip. Let's look. I'm a conspiracist. How come the yellow strip is not mentioned? Okay.
Material.
My pyramid.
All the medications.
What is probably. No, all the vaccines. Okay, let's see. What is the yellow line in my pyramid? It says, I guess there's other people that have been bothered by it too, because they didn't actually list what it was. So here it is. It says, the food guide pyramid, everything fits. It says, what's the thin yellow strip? It represents fats and oils, which can only be found in foods like nuts or fish. See how thin the yellow line is? Fats and oils are needed in the body, but only in small amounts. It's kind of interesting because the body does need actually a lot of fat. People would be shocked, but you should get it. You can get a huge amounts of fats from like coconut oil and good olive oil. You want your olive oil on the green side because then like it hasn't been cooked or processed. But yeah, I mean you could get and it's kind of interesting that's weird. I wonder how come I guess it's too small. They couldn't have actually listed what was on it. See, there was something to the yellow line.
They gotta make you dig for it.
See, conspiracists through and through. There was something. All right. Well, anything else to report?
I don't think so. I did some tapping, some of the EFT, some tapping this morning. That was nice, just to move some stuff.
Did anything interesting come into onto your radar from doing some tapping?
Kind of. I don't know that I'm quite prepared to go into it because I'm getting ready for the CETA's project or for my April initiative, and I want to talk about like my mental health process, and then so it's just been the group setting was nice.
So tell the listeners what it is.
Oh, for the EFT?
Yeah, well, they don't know. I mean, about your CITES program.
Oh,
Tell people what it is.
For the initiative. Last year, when I had my radio show in the morning, I talked through it. But the first year, the CETAS is a acronym for sex in the art scene. So we're addressing like community interactions, community relationship developments, things like that. We talked about like boundaries, consent the first year. Last year was weird because COVID, it held space. And so this year, I think because of everything coming to the surface as far as COVID and politics and things online and just kind of where I would like to see this project go and where I think people are at realistically. It's just making me very present with my own self in the context of things. So this year I'll be exploring my own mental health process, or my own mental health journey. So I've been interviewing and talking to a bunch of different people, just kind of get a feel for how the project has gone in the past, how people have gone through their own journeys, kind of what a lot of the conversations have just been very abstract, just as far as me finding my space or way to do this in an effective way, in an artistic way, in a creative way. So, that's that part of it. I kind of forgot what we were talking about before. As far as like how the week is gone.
You were talking about doing some tapping, and then it kind of started relating to this project that you're working on.
Well, yeah, it's been interesting because I've been going back through my journey and through my process, and EFT is one of those tools that's come up a few times along the way, and just different stepping stones, I think, that have kind of got me to this point. So it's just interesting. I'm just still in, I think, the processing of it all and trying to understand it and preparing myself to have a couple more conversations. And I'm not sure where the project itself is going to grow, but I've got a lot of ideas. So I don't know, it always picks up a lot of momentum and kind of goes in its own direction. So I'm just going with the flow. At least trying to steer it. I've got my eyes set on something I think specific. But
we have our first commercial promos coming up here pretty quick in about 20 minutes. Anyway, I think I read that wrong. I thought, oh my God, it's already 53. Sorry, it's only 33.
Mm-mm.
I'm trying to be, Johnny on the spot, but I did 4:20 before the show, so I'm having a moment. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, 5 o'clock somewhere.
So how are you going to do? So what did you decide for this project? Because, I don't know, a few weeks ago you were telling me like kind of like all these different angles on it. So you're thinking about doing kind of a year-long project, or are you just going to do a month, or are you just going to do like a conference week?
As far as how the month goes, because it's in honor of April Sexual Assault Awareness Month for the whole month. And typically before I've just done like a one event thing for the month, and I might, just depending on how everything kind of grows, like pre-video stuff before going into it, or I don't know, I'm still kind of feeling feeling shy and insecure about a lot of stuff. But if I start with one video, I have an outline of how I can go in a lot of different directions. And I'm like, well, do I outline having a conversation about the thing, or do I just start talking and see what happens and see what comes out? Do I have specific topics? What is it that people want to know in general? What is it that people want to know about me specifically? How in-depth and detailed do I get? Because if it's a way that I can tie it into like just programming in general and just tie it into the other business model stuff, then like that would be cool. So I don't know, I'm trying to juggle a lot of things but simplify. And I like doing this initiative, and then I don't like doing this initiative. I feel like there's a lot of energy, so if I tap into it the right way, I can get something out of it, but I don't know, Bridgette. I'm overwhelmed by it this week. I think I talked about it too much last week, just in conversations, and then in processing stuff, and just a big part of me doesn't want to do it. But
Well, it sounds like that for sure. But I just think you should keep it, my opinion, and it's my opinion. I just think you should keep it simple. I think you should do it for 1 week. And I think you should have 4 days where you cover mental, sexual assault and the mental, and then do sexual assault for like the emotional, like the next, little blurb, and then one for emotional, and then have a day where you also do the energetic. I mean, I hate that word spiritual, because it's like, what exactly does that mean? And so when people say mind, body, emotion, and spirit or spiritual, it's like that doesn't, I think it should be replaced with energy and energetic.
I agree. Spiritual has a lot of like kind of religious undertones, or could be. It just depends on the context, I guess, and who you're talking to. It can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah, because I was thinking, with my clients, I could have a client that has kind of the same some of the same problems, but maybe that they're dealing with it, or they're coming at it from a mental place. And then maybe I have another client who's dealing with the same exact stuff, but maybe, emotional or energetic, picking things up. And so I think sometimes for me, it's, there can't be really a one size fits all. But if I can do it into categories, so I can help target whoever's, dealing with the mental, and then the people are dealing with the physical too, and the emotional.
Well, that makes sense too, because I feel like as far as the journeying part of it, I've done my best to address it from every different angle, and everyone is just, it's kind of been its own thing, and one has kind of opened the doorway for another, and yeah, because simplifying things can be a little tricky for me. That makes a lot of sense. And then I think it's just like, what is it that people want to know? Like, on one hand,
Well,
I feel
but
like
the thing is isn't it your conference?
again,
You should just pick the things that you think they should know and have it on that. You should know.
I've got a few of those written down.
You really should know.
I've gotten a lot of good ideas out of these conversations so far, which is making me very aware kind of where people are at versus where I'm at in my own head. Because I tend to get lost in my own head, my own creative process, and kind of just been like in my own little bubble for a while, kind of more so than I have been.
Oh, and you can add in, so remember I was sent you that thing because it kind of fits into this conversation. But so I had a client, and they anyway, it's kind of a long story. I probably shouldn't get into it, but that one might get me in trouble. No. But so I started, I picked up this book the other day, and I was looking for behavior, because whatever people are struggling with, or their kids or their babies, or, their animals, or, it's constantly on my back burner. People talk to me about it, and I don't readily have, a remedy for it. It'll be in the back of my head. And as soon as I come along something, because I do a ton of research, I'm a big researcher. Anyway, so I picked up this book, and it was talking about kids, and it was a psychology homeopathic book. So you would have to, locate the behaviors, and then it would show you which, homeopathic remedies went really good for those. And so it was interesting, because people that have kind of they're kind of behavioral moments where you might have a kid or a toddler that gets, really angry, and then just, clobbers something, or pinches another kid, or bites them, or some of these like little behaviors. The stramium, you can give them the stramium 200C, which is a homeopathic. But it was interesting when I was reading it, because it said that almost when they're an adult and they still kind of have these outburst kind of behaviors, that it always comes back to being sexually abused. Like there's always some kind of layer of sexual abuse that's there in the behavior. And that they also could, when they grow up, become over sexualized, like they be, because of this, underlying whatever is going on with them and the chemical imbalance. So the homeopathic remedy, these studies I was looking at from Europe, talked about how they were really effective in, different behaviors for different people, and how effective stramium was on, kids who would have these outbursts, and adults as well. And the adults should take the 30C, just in case people are listening. But it kind of helps to, homeopathically, which is like, homeopathic remedies are probably the most safest remedies out of everything. But I thought it was really interesting, because I hadn't really actually looked at, even though I have books, it's the first time I actually looked at the psychological behavior, and learned how to find homeopathic remedies that go along with those. So that was a kind of a really exciting moment I had this week.
It's a good like aha, and a good breakthrough. And I think with a lot of the conversations I've been having, especially with older women within the arts, and like children and different things, is something that keeps coming up, and it's an interesting topic to get into, or it's a way to break into it. And I think like my only way into it is just through my own stories, or just through my own experiences. But I think what amazes me the most about it is just how adapted maybe people are to it being a norm, or it's just something that is just very easily dismissed or grieved through forgiveness, but then also just kind of overlooked. I don't know how to, that one's a tricky one to get into, but it's amazing how many people are affected. And I think the last thing I want to do through it is to trigger anything that should trigger anyone, or to bring up memories or things without having some sort of tools or resources or way out, or way through maybe, and like doing the work. There's definitely ways through, but I think once we start diving into it, there's so many different layers to it, and the ancestral aspect to it. But the homeopathic part of it, I think, is super, super important, because we, in our larger, especially American culture, just want to put in that synthetic chemical aspect and numb people. People just don't really understand how to hold space, I think, for those super traumatic things. They really shut down.
Well, I think some people don't even address it. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I've had clients in the past that, you know, their toddlers had weird, you know, poop things that happened, right? And sometimes those, what they do with the poop kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to have a friend of mine also that worked in the school, like elementary school. She was like the psychologist. And she said, like, it was always a red flag when kids were being sexually molested because they would poop smear. So they would, you know, poop in the bathroom, and then they always had tendencies to poop smear. So, so I had a client once that, you know, had a kid that did it super young. And so the regular psychologist, you know, that is not informed about sexual abuse or even childhood sexual abuse, it's just bizarre to me. And even doctors, I had a doctor friend of mine that said she ended up getting a job to inspect children, you know, like for, you know, criminal activity, like being molested. And she said, like, it was such an overwhelming job, and most doctors didn't do it. There was like this special training to actually do it. So it's not even really on the medical professionals' radar. I mean, it has to be like serious, you know what I mean? It has to be like really, really serious and really kind of a situation that, you know, they can't really actually look away. But in psychology, it's the same way too. And so she, you know, had talked to the psychologist about what to do about her toddler, you know, basically taking their diaper off and pooping it on the floor and then, you know, smearing it all over the place. So, you know, like, I think, you know, like, I'm a person that tries to look at all the bases, and, you know, how difficult sometimes those conversations are that nobody has with people, you know, regardless if this is happening to your kid or your, you know, or not, being able to have people that, you know, can help you maybe look at the signs so that you can, you know, kind of resolve stuff. But there's so little education about predatorial, you know, sexual behavior and the victim, you know, and the symptoms.
That's come up a few times in these conversations as well, as far as like domestic violence as well. Right? I saw somebody's post and her frustration of like just the shock and the awe, the coming to the awareness that so many people you think would be there to help just aren't trained. They have no education at all in any of this stuff. Like, they're just so oblivious to it. You would think they'd have a better understanding, especially with, like, as a psychologist, right? Somebody who's trained into these different fields, because those are big deal moments. I mean, understanding that can definitely have an influence and an impact on a person's healing, you know, on their own journey.
I've been watching that on Hulu, you know. I've been wanting to really watch that. It's a 3-season series on Scientology that this actress, Leah Remini, actually put together because she had been a Scientologist for like 30 years. And then she decided to leave, and she just started to realize like how brainwashed and everything she was. And then she started finding out about all this like horrendous abuse that goes on in Scientology. Like, it's just I've seen a lot of things, but I just was blown away. And she covers pretty much everything, and people come and talk about their experiences and what's happened to them. And it's just unbelievable to me, like, what has gone on. I mean, one of the kind of more frightening things is that the kids are, you know, in Ron L. Hubbard Scientology, kids are not considered children. They're just adults in young bodies. You know, they talk a lot about karmic stuff and, you know, a lot of this other kind of stuff and consciousness. And so parents are kind of taught to work really hard for Scientology. They have like things called the Sea Org and all this other stuff that people are involved in. And they literally they'll give their children away at age 10. They sign them off to the church. And sometimes they never see their children again.
Ugh.
And the kids are sent to what's called the Sea Org, and they do all the free work of all the work that needs to be done. And they also, you know, in many cases have been molested and seriously abused. And then if they don't, you know, if they don't do everything kind of by the book and they mess up in any way, which could be a very minimal thing, they'll, you know, send you to these farms that are like out in the middle of nowhere, and they're like these giant labor camps. And a lot of these people talked about, you know, being in these weird labor camps doing like 8 hours of labor through a Scientology, you know, kids behavioral kind of, you know, outdoor center. And like horrible things that were done to them. Like they were so hungry. They were kind of like borderline starved. They worked like 8-hour hardcore day. They were abused by the adults and, you know, treated this really unbelievable. But there's just so much coming out in that whole Scientology 3 season. Actually, you know, like really blew my mind, because every time there would be another episode to watch, I was like, what else could they possibly talk about? And then you're like, you watch it, you go, oh my God. Like, and they're trying to get FBI involved. They're trying to get the government involved. But because they have, you know, tax deduction through the IRS, as a religious entity, like no one will go after them. And they have these places where if they get mad at the executives and stuff, they actually will put them all basically into these buildings, and literally they lock the doors and everything and keep them from escaping. And then they like starve them and treat these adult people like crap. And so they have these whole areas where these people work for Scientology, massive organization. And if they get mad at you, they'll hold you hostage. And they have like security and everything to bring you back, like if you try to run.
Jeez.
It was like totally mind-blowing that we still have, you know, it's, you know, something like that is functioning as its own country. It's functioning as its own country, its own military, its own police force, its own income. In some cases, like down in Florida, in Clearwater, Florida, I think, Scientology just took over this whole town, like in the 60s, 70s. And people tried to fight against it, and they ended up taking over this whole town, and they own like quite a bit of the town. And they basically hold this small town kind of hostage. There's been crazy stuff that, you know, has happened there. But they buy up areas, and so pretty much soon this guy that's the head of Scientology now is get a few more buildings, and they'll have like the whole marina district, you know, there in Clearwater, Florida, under control. And they they showed footage actually about the law enforcement and how they really work for the Scientology people. Like they watch, and if they don't like who you are sitting in their Scientology park, they have the police come and remove you. It's like totally blatant that the police of the town actually work for Scientology. So it's just like totally crazy. I mean, number one, that this kind of stuff is still going on. I mean, in America, I mean, you have compounds and even visible compounds, and people are being held captive and abused. It just is like crazy. And the thing is like, I can see why this, Scientology and L. Hubbard would have appealed to a lot of people, because he's new agey. He's super new agey. And I could see how people could get, pulled into that kind of stuff. And then they totally lied to people about how he died. They told people in Scientology, okay, he'd been like really sick for a long time. He'd had like a stroke and all kinds of stuff. They were like, keeping him alive. And he was Mr., like reincarnation kind of thing, tell people. Anyway, so when he died, they couldn't tell him that, he'd been basically bedridden for 3 years and they've been taking care of him. So they said that he consciously left his body, and that they have 6 like $10 million homes all over. So when he comes back into the body in this life, he'll have like a house to live in. So while everybody else, works their butt off, so these houses are like empty and they have people taking care of them. It's super crazy, actually. It's like, the cheese slid off the cracker quite a bit.
I'm kidding.
But anyway, okay, so hey, we're on break. And we'll be back about 1 after. Okay, I don't hear any promos, so hopefully the promos will kick in. All right, break.
Okay.
See you back.
We're going to get back to your host.
Woo, 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 woo. Hey, whoever's out there, thanks for letting us listen to the promos. Really appreciate that. That was very nice. Let's see. So, hey, we're back.
Okay.
It is Bridgette Dolgoff and Kelsey Sweet. And we are carrying stones and digging holes to cultivate consciousness. Revolution Radio, 8 p.m. Eastern every Saturday evening. And then I didn't do the donation, so we'll do that. And so everything that we do here, everybody that works, well, we don't really work for Revolution Radio. We volunteer. None of us make a cent, and all the money goes to, new things that we're needing all the time. And we need websites and people building the websites, and keeping, our servers on, and keeping the lights on and the bills paid. So we ask that you donate just to keep our lights on. That's it. That's all we want. So anyway, you can go to revolutionradiofreedomslips.com. That's our website. And now in black lettering, I noticed on the website, has all the different categories there at the top. And then we have a whole donation page now, has the Patreon on there, has, one-time ATM debit card transaction donation. And then it also has where you can mail it. And I think we also have for foreign money, some kind of drop box for that as well. And also we also have the shop. You can buy T-shirts and mugs and whatever else and help to support us here at Revolution Radio. We really appreciate it. And also, and I'll let Kelsey tell you about her website. You can find Kelsey and I's show, information about the show, contact information, if you go to coe-llc.com and scroll down in the pages, and you'll see carrying stones and digging holes to cultivate consciousness. Click on that, and that'll take you to all the different information if you need that. And then Kelsey has her own website, kelseysweet.com. And then are you going to put your Citus stuff up there on your website?
I think I've got it up there. It's got its own little page. I think under my Parliaments tab, I've got things kind of blocked into different categories. So I've got my different projects, and I've got services that I offer as well, and then my art portfolios and all that fun stuff.
Right. So your Citus is up there?
Uh-huh. Yep.
In
and
case
got,
people are...
Facebook page and all that stuff.
Right.
Too.
So are you going to do it online?
Yeah.
So people can join from other places other than just Reno?
Yeah. I don't know if it'll be YouTube, or maybe I'll do something beforehand on YouTube and then open up something else, probably through Facebook Live. That seems to be where I catch them with my net. So, yeah. there's like all the links to all the other things that I do and all the stuff to my social media pages, and I think it's almost organized. It's always a work in progress. But that's why I do my own graphic design work and my own website stuff. Because I like to change stuff all the time and add to it and build and grow. And I think the next month or two is going to be kind of a hectic one, but I'm going to be really happy when it's May. But anyway. What else you got, Bridgette?
I don't know. I've been looking at some biodynamic stuff. I always like looking at biodynamic stuff, talking about biodynamics.
How are your classes going?
Well, I'm almost done with my anthroposophy one. That will be done like mid-May. But I think I'm finally done paying for it. So that course went from September to May every week, basically, except for about 3 weeks over December. And then I had I'll finish, I don't know, it'll be like 120 credits, I guess. At the end of March, I have one big weekend for the osteopathic stuff, finishing a program up that I started, I think, like last August. And, yep. And then I just started a 2-year fellowship with American Restorative Medicine, AARM. And it's a herbal medical 60 credit 2-year program. So I just started that. I'm kind of behind on it. I'm kind of behind on, I've got to get kind of myself kind of straightened out. Kind of a little bit on the burned out side with school, but you know what I mean? How you hit those walls.
Yeah. I've been out of school for 5-6 years now. Got my feet wet a little bit, kind of miss it, and then, no, I definitely do miss school, though. Yeah, needed a break. The burnouts, that's for real. It's overwhelming stuff, and you gotta cram your brain full of all kinds of new information, and then apply it to your work, and then write all the papers, and read all the books, and the research articles, and it's always the APA formatting that's daunting for me, but at least you don't have to worry so much about that.
Yeah, so anyway, I'll be glad when I get this March thing done, and then then I only have the AARM program. That'll be good. And then this summer I just really want to farm. That's all I can think about. Last summer I didn't do anything. I didn't have a bad summer. I collected plant medicine when I could get out, and made a really awesome medic salve this last year. Just phenomenal. It was just an amazing combo of wild plants. But I want to do farming this year, even if I just go to land and help people work on their land. Would be really great. I need to get some farm time.
That's how I feel about art. I want more art time. Trying to squeeze it in, but I'm just surrounded by like unfinished projects and so many different ideas, and it's just time consuming, and it takes up a lot of space. So it's hard to pull it all out and then put it all back and pull it out and pull it all back, and it's messy.
So there's some really good excerpts that I've been looking at on this one site. Just different biodynamic people. Starting with like Rudolph Steiner, so like the early 1900s, and then a few people that branched off from work. So there's a couple of people here from like 77 and 1982 talking about some things, but I think that it says excerpt, Steiner describes the formation of plants as mediated by both terrestrial and cosmic influences. This allows us to see the living plant as generated between earthly and cosmic pole. That's an excerpt from Sean O'Connor, The Creative World of Biodynamic Agriculture, 1982. Let's see. There was another one here that I was looking at. Oh yeah, this is kind of a cool one. This is from another guy, 1974. For centuries, the farmer has been at the bottom of the social ladder in terms of recognition and material reward. Farm and garden constitute life's sustaining base of all mankind, and yet the consumer generally refuses to pay a price which is based on cost, including human labor to produce it. The food industry, on the other hand, will not sell a product unless a predetermined profit and overhead are built into the price of the item. What would the price of the food be if the farmer or the gardener would charge an hourly wage equal to the plumber's income? Is the labor of the farmer less needed? That was from the Future After 50 Years Biodynamic magazine. Yeah, and that's true. I mean, the farmer doesn't basically makes enough money to keep things going, to buy seed or whatever else. It doesn't ever really pay for the labor. That's why, you generally you offer apprenticeships, and what apprenticeships are is that you train, people as you go, and they help you, with the labor. And usually in farming work, good farming work, I'm not talking about commercial farming operations, but usually they have a place for you to stay, and then you also have meals, good food. Those are included, and then maybe sometimes they can offer you a stipend. I think the most stipend I've gotten paid on a 7-day-a-week summer, when it explodes in the summer, like, the coming in the spring, not as many hours, and going into the fall, not as many hours, but spring, you can work literally 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. But the largest stipend I ever made was $400 plus a place to live and killer food. I mean, we slaughtered our chickens and our lambs and made our own breakfast sausages, and it was killer food. Probably one of the best places for food that I went to. But yeah, so people don't really respect kind of farmers, and I think pretty quick they're gonna, because there's gonna be some food issues for sure. They should have treated us farmers much better than they have.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, this is a really good one. The biodynamic method was founded to establish a harmonious and living relationship between beings and nature, including man. The sacrifice of the other realms of nature for man can only arouse in us feeling of gratitude. The biodynamic farmer method becomes an activity of thanksgiving, attempting to heal what inadvertently might have been wounded. Heinz Grotsky, I guess that would make him Polish. Heinz Grot, maybe. Biodynamic magazine article. I love this. This is a good one too. Biodynamics tells the farmer how to conserve the soil and produce wholesome food with the least amount of outside help and resources. Biodynamic appeals to the human element in man, and in time will teach the grower how to establish a new and living relationship between himself and the surrounding elemental forces in nature. The biodynamic farmer, through hard physical and spiritual labor, will experience the roles of student, teacher, artist, architect, and priest as well. Through his work, he learns to guide the planetary forces as much as the earthly and marvels at the constant creation of life. That was an excerpt by Mr. Hines. Let's see what else we have. Just some goodies in here. I was like looking at some of this. It's pretty. This is a really good one. The farmer, mediating between the realms of nature, mineral, plant, animal, and human, is thus creating a new agriculture, since he influences processes, the intake of the cosmic forces, and the sending up of the earth forces that gives rise to plant life, which in turn supports more developed forms of life for future evolution of earth. Man is now really responsible actor regarding processes in nature. There was just some goodies in here that I was like looking at, thinking about doing a blog about, sometimes when I come across some of these like little gems, I like to read them several times. Oh, this is a really good one here at the top. This is from a guy named Omram Michael Ahov Michael. Biodynamics was like, very European before it actually came to America. I think it hasn't really been in the US very long, and not many people have studied it. But anyway, he has an excerpt here. It says, take a hand of earth, hold it for a moment, and think of all the elements the Creator has placed in it so that the millions of plants, and through them, all living creatures could survive because of it. These days, unfortunately, most of the fruit and vegetables we eat full of negative influences, and that is without the mentioning of the fertilizers and the pesticides. With the passage of time, the earth has become a huge cemetery, drenched in the blood of humans and steeped in their crimes. And as those who cultivate the soil often do so with no respect or love, or even in a state of inner rebellion, their thoughts and feelings enter the seeds and poison them. Humanity is endlessly creating unhealthy living conditions for itself out of ignorance. How helpful it would be to relearn the art of agriculture according to the Esoteric rules. I'm not sure what that word is. These rules were known and respected in the past by certain civilizations, and maybe they still are to a certain extent in some parts of the world. The people who conformed to these rules knew how to work with the cosmic energies so that the people who conformed to these rules knew how to work with the cosmic energies so that the seeds they placed in the soil would absorb these energies and provide vegetables and fruits that contain the maximum nutritional and health-giving properties. So I just want to look at this word really quick. I need to turn the light on because my computer is bright light, bright light here in the dark. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So the rules that he was talking about were INITIATIC rules, and it says the 3 stages of that word in Esoteric. I don't understand. Anyway, so this is what it says about that word. There's a book here. Let's see. And it looks like This is a very interesting book. So this is what it so there's kind of an interesting book called The 3 Stages of That Word, Spirituality, Craftsman, Warrior, and Magician by Angel Millar. I always love sometimes where these little rabbit holes go. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. It looks like a pretty cool book, actually. I'm putting it on my order list. It says, exploring the craftsman, warrior, magician archetypes, 3 vocations that echo the tradition, tripartite division of society. Angel Millar reveals how these initiatic archetypes represent the 3 successive stages of spiritual growth in an individual's life. He investigates their symbology, rituals, metaphysical aspects, and share meditation practices and transformational techniques for the archetype. Okay, so that still doesn't really tell me what this word is. So here's like a Sufism take on it. So let me see here. It's calling it the initiation. Oh, initiative. Okay. This one is kind of an interesting piece, but it still doesn't really tell me. It doesn't give me a definition. Okay. Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly. Anyway, I'll have to keep looking. And that's very interesting. I mean, because we've been talking about initiation a lot in my applied anthroposophy course. So that's kind of so here's the 3 stages of initiac spirituality. I don't know exactly how to say that word the way that it's spelled. Sometimes the initiation comes after great illness, pain, suffering. This is these things are not objects of devotion per se, but hint at the natural law or cosmic law, all pervasive cosmic intelligence or law giver. Okay. Well, anyway, that was very interesting. Alrighty then. So it's kind of like more like ancient ways of growing, which, the whole native seed thing, I did some shows on that one, had my show before, and had some amazing people on talking about native seeds. And the native seeds are just completely different than, even heirloom seeds. And sometimes they kind of get mixed up, but native seeds have been around, like some of them, I think when I was having Stephen on my show, some of the seeds that he had, the oldest native seeds, they have a history of 7,000 years. And he, went through the native people who gave them to him that they'd never actually left the tribe, into the actual environment. So a lot of these seeds, some of them have been, like I also would have Greg Schoen on my show, and he talked a lot about studying with a man, I think his name was like White Eagle or something like that, who passed on like a bunch of, in the 70s to him, a whole bunch of native knowledge on growing native seeds and passed some of them on. So Greg had been, doing outgrows of native seeds as they came along for a long time, like 30 or 40 years, to get them back into the native people's hands and to get them into native seed banks. And then, start getting them passed along to people who consciously want to grow food, right? Want to deal with these kinds of seeds because, like I had some pretty, intense supernatural experiences with some of the seeds that I grew and, their capabilities and they were like wielding some pretty serious power, so especially some of the corn seed. And so you have to be really careful, with all aspects of handling those seeds. And I think Stephen said at one time that there are some seeds that, the person would have to be super, super conscious and understand a lot of this stuff in order for him to give them to, because they would be super powerful. And I mean, when I put these seeds in the ground in 2018, the people on the land went crazy, started fighting each other. Like eventually we had to get like the sheriff in, and one guy got kind of kicked out, and like crazy, crazy stuff happened. And it was, and all over, the people across the street, the guy had been cheating on his wife, and they had like all these horses, and, had this like pretty intense lifestyle, kind of a working lifestyle. So then everybody went nutso on the whole block. And they were like 40-acre parcels way out in the backside of Lemon Valley, but everyone went just berserko. A friend of mine, I was kind of watching his property out in the desert, and so I grew this garden. It's on my YouTube channel. And then, grew these seeds, and it was like crazy to watch, just what they could do. And they had to uproot, in order for them to pop through the soil, they had to uproot what was underneath. And it uprooted all the emotional stuff in people, like really crazy, crazy stuff. And then they stabilized, and they still, they did like crazy stuff. Like one time I was walking across around, there was like a little bit of lawn around this garden bed where they were at. And it was in the morning, and the desert, there's like no water, okay, out there. It's like sand duny, right? And so there was these little things that were hitting my feet. I had my thongs on. I was going out to water. It was like 7 a.m. in the summertime. And I looked down, and there's like these huge fog of the tiniest dragonflies, turquoise and blue ones. And I just was like so completely mind blown at them. Like my mouth just hung open, and as I looked at them, it was just unbelievable how many of them, and that they were all kind of flying, from my ankle and lower on the ground. It was just unbelievable, and how colorful they were. And I mean, I had no idea where they came from. We didn't have any water out there. So, I mean, it's not like there's like some kind of paradise or pond or, any place where they could have hatched and grown. So there's just stuff like that. And, yeah, I just had crazy, crazy stuff. Lots of insect crazy stuff. Huge praying mantises showed up out of nowhere. What else? I had a couple of my plants in the garden. I had these big cocoons, and when I looked them up online, I could have sworn that they were the exact as monarchs. And so I just left the cocoons in there, but I didn't see them break free, you know what I mean, and take off. But yeah, it was like butterflies were cocooning in the garden, like these huge, cocoons. And it was like, it was crazy. And the type of kind of small birds that these native plant, the corn mother, was attracting. And like she opened, I had quite a few native seeds direct from native hands because of Greg. He sent them to me to grow, but it was like a total test to see if I think the seeds tested me, see if I was going to be able to handle it. But it was a pretty intense experience. Like the insects just blew me away. Like I had just never, seen anything like that in the desert. And I realized like the head, one of all of the garden plants was definitely the corn mother. And she decided how things were going to go with even the other plants. And a friend of mine, he had a card, so he was growing outside. And what was even more interesting is a mutual native friend noticed that the corn imprinted the weed plants, even though they were kind of considerably away. They started turning the stems of all the leaves, not the buds or anything, but just the stem of the leaves, this really dark purple that was on the stalks of the corn.
Huh.
And so these corn, this corn mother, she just influenced everything. I had grown Hopi seeds too, and she influenced them a little bit. They had a little bit, instead of just pure black, they had a little bit of that purple. I had some Tulsi, holy basil, that was given to me by an Indian friend. And I grew that, and that really jived with the corn mother. But she, everything around her, she just opened up portholes. I mean, that's all I can describe it. And whatever she needed or whatever she wanted, she just brought it into her existence once they grew up through the ground. I mean, even, it was just a really incredible thing. But the whole, seeds, these native seeds, and the old way of doing agriculture, and being a steward, and having good feelings with the seeds, and not just planting them, and like that guy says here, through thoughts and feelings enter the seeds and poison them. Like, you just can't do that kind of stuff with the native seeds, because some of them will kick your ASS. Seriously. It was a really intense supernatural period, and the great part about it is it was completely sober. Like, I was completely sober through the whole thing, and it was still off the charts supernatural. Did not have to take ayahuasca to have like a crazy, summer experience with seeds.
The dragonflies, I think, really stand out. They're such a powerful symbol for transformation, and because they have various levels that they go through. And Mother Nature is so fascinating that it does bring in what it needs into balance and into harmony, and
yeah,
plants and consciousness.
When a lot of the birds, around that area had not ever had, sunflower seeds, because it was like out in the desert, so somebody would have had to grow them. And it was interesting because during the growth period, they didn't bother the corn, they didn't bother the beans, they didn't bother the sunflower seeds, but they really took really good care grooming the garden, of things that didn't belong there, and taking care of it, and, moving the energy around in it. And so once I started taking everything apart, they got to have their share, like, of the seeds. And it was amazing, like, because, that's kind of what I've learned walking the native path, is that, 30% go back to, the land and the nature. And then I keep some, to keep it growing. And then, I give away to other people another 30%, 40% of the seed. But when it was the time for the birds and them to actually get their percentage, I put all kinds of stuff out. I put like some of the beans out for the bigger birds. And I did, they love I left them on the sunflower heads and kind of stuck them into this table so they were secure, so they could come and like pull them out. And it was interesting to watch them, and they were so excited. They just powered down. They ate it all like in a really short period of time, but it was interesting to watch them. Having not ate that stuff before, and probably was like some of the best stuff that they'd ever had, like really hopefully replenish them for sure.
It's one of my favorite things about food is having something new or something I won't have very often, and just the amazing flavors that can come through food. Imagine for birds, it's got to be pretty interesting what they can find, especially since they get like a bird's eye view and a higher perspective of things.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all I can talk about right now is seeds and soil and farming, and it's kind of like right now all I can think about.
The weather's just been so nice here the last couple of days. It's hard to not think about being outside, and some of the bulbs are starting to sprout, and so the flowers will be coming out, and the robins are out, and things waking up. Days are longer and longer.
Yep, I've noticed the robins are back.
Yep.
And so that's always a really good sign. Yep, yeah. Really, really good sign. So what else? What else are you going to work with your garden? You're just kind of working on your citrus stuff, thinking about it, tossing it around, absorbing it, processing it.
I think, well, because I was standing out in my little garden space the other day, because I've just been working on composting and dirt and like things decaying. And part of me really wants to get a garden going again, and the other part of me just wants to focus on work, finding my own home space, whatever that would look like, or just. I saw something earlier that made me think of you. It was an advertisement for something, but it was like the bio art that they were creating, and just like huts and structures and figures and things just out of like reeds and the organic substances within the environments. And I really want to make something in nature. I've been thinking a lot about homes and like nest building and just organic structures and the earth. And
have you ever seen that documentary? I think it's called Earth First.
I don't think so.
I'll send it to you. It's so good. I'm going to look for it real quick here.
What's it about? Earth First?
Yeah, well, they kind of show, I think Top Documentary used to have it on there. I think it was called, I have to look for it. Anyway, it's about how, like places in Iran and a lot of these other places, they've been making things out of mud. Like they even have, like 5, story buildings that are beautiful, right? That have been designed out of mud. So it's a lot about cob building and using mud, but I mean, it's so artistic and beautiful, but it goes through like the whole, history of it. And it's like just, let me see, Earth First. Oh, wait, here it, oh, where'd it go? Whoop. Let's see. Earth First. Whoops, it had it for a second there. Why did it bump off? Anyway, so let me go here. It's some amazing. Let me see if I can just find the title. Earth First. Let's see. Documentary. Let's see. Earth First documentary. I don't know if they have it on there anymore. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. Oh, here it is. Yeah, here it is. It's called First Earth, Uncompromising Ecological Architecture. It's fantastic. I'll send you a link here.
Cool.
Yeah, so anybody out there, I found that out at topdocumentaryfilms.com. And then the documentary is First Earth, Uncompromising Ecological Architecture. Anyway, it's like this, it's really an amazing, it's probably one of my favorite documentaries, even, when it comes to food and nature and all that. And then, yeah. So anyway, anybody that's interested in watching it, I just sent Kelsey a link on her Skype so she can check it out. But it is a fantastic, amazing documentary on earth building, and that it's been around for a super long time, and now people call it like cob building. But you should see what they do with the cob building right now. It's just so beautiful. It's just like breathtaking. And then some of these old structures and buildings that are like in the Middle East that, are just gorgeous and beautiful, and they're built really the same way, just simple mud. So it's an amazing journey. And then, so anyway, you'll love it. You'll just love to look at it. And anybody else that wants to watch it, they'll just be mind blown by it, because it really is. It's like just one of those breathtaking kind of documentaries, and kind of explains to you, what healthy housing used to be and how beautiful it was made, and like living, basically the way we do, in America with concrete and using wood and these walls and all this other stuff is primitive. Seriously, it's primitive, no brainer compared to like how beautiful, making your own home and using, mud and different kinds of artistic stuff, and just beautiful. And it was healthy for you because it, filtered out a lot of the toxins, because the clay and the mud kind of breathe. Where here we have so many indoor toxins and pollutants, and it's pretty shocking.
More and more, I just want to build my own home.
A nest. I would like to have a nest.
A mud stick nest. Possibly some metal scraps. Like shiny things, kind of like the crows. Things that sparkle. Catch light. Things grown into the earth. Built into the earth. Hard to do around here, though, especially when a lot of our earth has just been torn up for gold and silver and polluted with all kinds of other stuff, but it's always weird to go. Just trying to be open to that part. Like what's next?
I think the first time I ever saw firsthand like earth decimation, I was and it's something that I'll never forget. I think I was around 23. I ended up moving out of Reno, and for just a lot of reasons. I mean, it was, I never really ever thought that I would leave. I grew up in a small town kind of outside of Reno. And anyway, so I moved up there, and I was like bartending pretty much. And at this one bar, they served like Schlitz and hams on tap. It was just in order to have like a bar where you served hard liquor up there at that time, you had to serve food. And so most places just had beer and wine, just simple beer and wine. But a lot of the old guys used to come in there, like old retired, law enforcement and, just good old boy kind of thing. And one of them said, hey, I want to, you want to go fishing at this lake? I was like, I would love to go fishing at the lake. And he said, I want to take you to this place. And so we went across this lake, and we walked into this area that was like totally shocking to me. And they were these like red fir trees that were huge. The bases of them had been monstrous. Like I could have laid down on the center, and like my feet wouldn't have reached the edge, and my hands wouldn't have reached the other edge. It's so big. And he had talked about how, I forget, like the turn of the century or something like that, they came in and they logged them all. And it turned out that they logged all of them, and that nothing survived, and that it was the end of that species. It was a particular species that was there.
Jeez.
And it was like it was just kind of like, it was like a gut wrenching kind of moment. I don't ever think that I'll ever forget, just kind of like what I saw. It was the first time that I'd ever seen decimation, like earth decimation, It was just it was just kind of stuck with me. And I'm like 52 now, so it was like, 29 years ago. But it was a pretty intense period. Kind of learned a lot about a lot of different things, and about what's going on in the environment here, there, and the other thing, and for us and what had been going on. But okay, so we're gonna end here. I've got something.
All right.
All right, because we try to throw something in here. Okay, so this is basically the 6 basic exercises of esoteric development by Rudolph Steiner. I believe this is also in his book. It's a small book, How to Know Higher Worlds. Really good book. Mind you, all this stuff was written and in most cases translated, like 100 years ago. So sometimes the language can be a little bit, difficult. There's certain words that we don't really use anymore. So it says Rudolph Steiner gave 6 exercises which are fundamental to his meditative work. Number 1, the control of thought. The first exercise has to do with the control of thinking. It is designed to keep our minds from wandering, to focus them in order to strengthen our meditative work. There are several versions of this exercise. Here is one. Select a simple object, a pen, a button, a pencil. Try to think about it exclusively for 5 minutes. You may think about the way that the object is manufactured, how it is used, what its history is. Try to be logical and realistic in your thinking. This exercise is best if practiced faithfully every day. You may use the same object every day or a new object each day as you choose. 2, choose a simple action to perform each day at a time you select. It should be something you do not do ordinarily. It can be a little odd. Then make it a duty to perform this action at that time each day. Rudolph Steiner gives the example of watering a flower each day at a certain time. As you progress, additional tasks can be added at other times. The exercise is as hard as it is simple and takes very strong intention to complete. The start you might think of as you think of a dentist appointment. You do not want to be late. It can be helpful to mark your success or failure on the calendar each day. If you completely forget at that time but remember later, then do it and try to do better the next day. Equanimity. This is a word that's been coming up really heavily in my life for 2 years. The third exercise is the development of balance between joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, the heights of pleasure and the depths of despair. Strive for a balanced mood. An attempt should be made not to become immoderately angry or annoyed, not to become anxious or fearful, not to become disconcerted, not to be overcome by joy or sorrow. Rather, should your natural feelings be permitted to be quietly felt, try to maintain your composure. This leads to an inner tranquility and pure feelings of the soul. Number 4. This exercise is the development of a positive attitude to life. Attempt to seek for the good, praiseworthy, and beautiful in all things and beings. All experiences and all things. Soon you will start to notice the hidden good and beauty that lies concealed in all things. This is connected with learning not to criticize everything. You can ask how something came to be or act the way that it is. One way to overcome the tendency to criticize is to learn to characterize instead. Number 5. For this exercise, make an effort to confront every new experience with complete open-mindedness. The habit of saying, "I have never heard that," or I've never saw that before, should be overcome. The possibility of something completely new in the world must be left open. even if it contradicts all your previous knowledge and experience. 6, if you have been trying the earlier exercises of thinking, will, equanimity, positivity, and tolerance, you are now ready to try them together, 2 or 3 at a time, in varying combinations until they become natural and harmonious. And it says, for more information, see Guidance in Esoteric Training by Rudolph Steiner. So, I wasn't really sure, I'll just throw this out there, about equanimity. I didn't really know what equanimity meant, really. And then I read a book that this yogi kind of put it in perspective. And the yogi talked about how he had this cat. And the cat was not fazed by anything. It just felt confident, and it was just tough, and it just had like this presence. And he said that there was this dog across the street that was kind of a big dog, and that the dog had a tendency to get loose out of its yard or whatever else, and then it would like chase other animals in the neighborhood, and sometimes try to chase this cat. And he said that one day he was looking out the window, and this cat was out laying in the shade by this tree. And the way that the cat was laying there, and just kind of its presence kind of gave off this energy. Anyway, the dog somehow got out of the grip of the owner, and the dog saw the cat, and it came barreling at the cat, like growling and barking, and like just hightailing it towards the cat up onto the lawn in this guy's yard or whatever else. And he said that the cat just sat there, and it had this energy of this strong presence, like holding its ground. And by the time the dog got near the cat, this whole energy of this cat kind of scared the dog, so much so that the dog actually, stopped in its tracks, and then did an about face and ran back as fast as it had come. And he said that was like equanimity. When you're kind of in this place, and you're holding your ground, in a strong feeling of self, then, anything that's coming at you could be, derailed.
With the chi, something about the energy, it just reminds me like of the qigong, where they just with
deflect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, a really good way of explaining equanimity. And it's just not being attached to anything outside of you. It's about the structure inside of you. 100%.
Equanimity, different than equality, but like balance energetically almost.
Yeah. So anyway, I think equanimity is kind of an interesting one. Like I said, it keeps coming up over the last couple of years, and it's not the thing is I don't think for many people, I think shamanism is like one of those, at least the types that I've studied, the older ones, that's kind of like where you need to be. You need to be in this place of inner equanimity. And it's not going to keep everything from happening to you, but I think it helps when you're not attached to what's happening to you, and not in a denial way, but you see it, you confront it or whatever else, but because of how you manage your equanimity yourself, it doesn't affect you in a great way. Could be also kind of like that whole thing too, where the observer, or they talk a lot about that, some of the yogis, where you finally get into like, the sixth chakra area, where you're just the observer and you're not attached really anything that's going on around you. You don't get attached to it emotionally.
The detached compassion.
Yeah.
It's a nice space to be in. It's difficult, but I think once you get to that space, we can witness and be objective without judging things.
Well, it's much easier, having lived in ashrams. It's way easier to do if you're like, meditating on a cliff or in a cave, to do this kind of stuff. And, but to be in life, in the mix of it, in the washing machine of it. And it takes a lot longer and it's a little bit more difficult. But hey, we're at the end of the show as usual. It goes by extremely fast.
It does go by fast. 2 hours is too quick.
Yep. So look up Kelsey's stuff, her Sitta stuff on her kelseysweet.com. If you know people who have been sexually abused, and so she's going to be putting out some work in April to help people with that. And we're going to be out of here, and we'll just see you next week. Any last word?
No, I just think you have so much information and so many different websites. I think just I googled Bridgette Lynn Dolgoff earlier. It's amazing. Like, you just have like pages and pages of stuff.
I know. I'm a posting addict.
I'm trying to get our radio stuff cleaned up on my website page and all that, and all the links and whatever, but the marketing.
All right, everybody.